Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for stopping by. I hope your day's been good thus far. Um, I see we got the West Coast covered with Becky. We got the South covered with Diane, and I'll just cover the middle. Almost said Middle East, but they say Kentucky's in the South, and now I'm moving 2 hours north. I don't know. Uh, Moving from Indiana to here, all of a sudden I'm from being a northerner to southerner for just 5 hour drive, and I'm still not convinced. So I'm out as far as saying that Kentucky's in the South. Even though I live in South Central Kentucky, I don't know. Hey, let's talk. Oh, Southern California's there too. Good deal. Um, Not for sure where all of you live or are at. Pennsylvania, Southern California. Well, okay, good deal. Pennsylvania, yeah, okay, we'll get there. Nonetheless, I appreciate all of you being here today. In the last couple of weeks, crazy things have been going on for me travel wise. And I want to talk about just being overwhelmed. Um, I think I qualify as one to be overwhelmed. Went from getting a new job, leaving a place, looking for a house, making an offer on a house, buying a house, dealing with all the financial aspects of that. Then I'm thinking about moving, um, and a couple trips it's going to take to do that. Um, I had a granddaughter born in there. Um, I transitioned with my wife, my son and his wife are transitioned. There's just a lot of stuff that I'm holding on to. And I don't know about you, but they say you hold stuff close to your chest. Well, if you hold stuff close, it's hard to fight with your elbows, because you're holding here and you need your hands. And so I've been a little bit overwhelmed. Back and forth has gotten to me a lot. And I'll be honest with you. I went back and looked at my gas receipts just for fuel. Um, and I'm going to go back. Hang on, real quick. Let me just look to the calendar. I'm gonna have to make it. I'm gonna expand it to see just a little bit better. My first Sunday up there was February 22nd, so it's been 9 weeks. 9 weeks today, and I've already spent almost $1,475 in gas back and forth. So I'm wanting to get rooted, grounded, and settled. And that word settled has been a word I've been finding myself praying for a lot. Um, and of course, over those 9 weeks, gas just goes up and up and up and up and up. Matter of fact, gas is up about 80 cents higher than it was when I first moved or when I first was in the transition. So it's been crazy. Um, Making most of my own food up there. So I went to Walmart, got some of those things. And so I'm making a lot of my food. I'm not going out to eat all the time. I'm really, trying to go as cheaply as I can. But life is expensive, as we know. So there's just a lot happening, and you're trying to think about this and that, plus sermon prep. Uh, I'm just I'm getting most of the names up there. I missed this last week. I missed two names. I got like 80% right, but I also had a couple names I kind of missed. So it's just that all of that stuff, and I'm not one of those guys that just has downtime. I don't just sit around and do nothing. Like today, when I've been packing, been moving stuff, shifting. That's another part of the stress. You're trying to figure out, well, what goes in the first load, what goes in the second load, how are we going to pack this stuff, where's it going to go once we get it there. You got to have people here to help me pack it. I got people there to help me unpack it, and so there's just a whole lot of times where I've had to say, Lord, I just need to be settled. And I need to be settled in my spirit, in my heart, and my mind, because things are just crazy. And it's not that I'm angry or upset or afraid or terrified. I'm not. It's just there's so many things to do and so many things you got to do right. And I've been on the phone today with the finance guy from the bank and the mortgage and well, what about this? What about that? And there's just a whole lot of stuff out there. It's a logistics nightmare. Um, but you go on. And so I want to talk today just about that sense of being overwhelmed. And a lot of times I will pull things that are, I'm going through dealing with. Not as a way to say, well, here's how I did it, but here's just basically say, you know, um, just to say, here's how I'm working through it. Here's how God has helped me. Um, here's how here's how God has comforted me, and here's how God has spoken to me through all the things going on. Psalm chapter 6, and it's only 10 verses. I want you to listen to what David says. O Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. Now listen, Paul basically says, don't rebuke me, don't discipline me. So I want you to know that David was in a spot of like, what do I do? He was like, he was having those moments where things were busy and difficult and challenges. And you look in that time frame of what he was fighting and kings and all these and heads of state, presidents, prime ministers, leaders have a whole lot more to deal with than just what happens here at home, because our international relationships are very important. Just throw the words out: United Nations, NATO, all the chaos there. He says, Lord, rebuke me not in your anger, nor discipline me in your wrath. So in other words, David's like, God, I'm just so overwhelmed right now. But then he says a key word in verse 2 that is a very, 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 very important word. And I'm going to pull it up. I'm going to pull it up while I'm thinking about it. And that word is languish. He says, be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. Heal my bones. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are troubled. You ever hear somebody say how my grandma used to say all the time, when a storm was coming or bad stuff was coming, she'd say, I can feel it in my bones. I remember her talking about the oil embargo, 73, 74, somewhere around there. I was 4 or 5 years old. I just remember my grandma languishing about what she felt, because she was like, oh, just feel like something bad is coming. I just feel like something bad's coming. The word languish means this: to be or to become weak or feeble, lose strength or vigor. And then the other definition is to exist or continue in miserable or disheartening conditions. Wow. In other words, David says, I am languishing, God, because I feel miserable. I'm stuck here. I can't get out. I'm in the pit. I need you to come down and pull my feet out, put my feet on the rock, like Psalm 40. Another definition of it is to remain unattended or to be neglected. We always hear about, bills languishing. When a bill languishes in Congress, that means they're not going to pay attention to it. They don't care about it. Nobody needs that, so why bother? David says, be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. In his position, in his place, in his mindset, in his head, he was struggling. He was struggling to figure out, where do I go? What do I do? He says, heal me, O Lord, for my bones are troubled. In other words, he feels this deep. He feels this so deep in his heart, his mind, his spirit. He's trying to figure things out. He just can't. He's just, God, don't rebuke me. Don't discipline me in your wrath. Don't get mad at me. Literally, David says, don't get mad at me, God, because I'm trying to figure this out. And yes, he's depending a lot on his own mindset and thoughts. And look, let's face the fact. When we say, God, help us, help us, help us, help us, help us, we're also looking around thinking, okay, well, God could maybe do this and maybe do that. We do that. You do that. I do that. Because I've been trying to plan, okay, if we close on this day, without knowing, I've heard the 24th in an email and don't know for sure if it will be the 24th. I just know next week's when we're supposed to close. So all these things are there. All these things are going on. All these things are happening. And I'm simply trying to figure out things I don't have all the answers for yet. He then goes on to say, my soul also is greatly troubled. But you, O Lord, How long? How long? I'm going to read through some of the notes on verse 2. It says, during a time of distress and godly discipline, which the psalm writer knows he deserves, the experience has even affected him physically, but more troubling is the sense he has lost God's presence and spiritual peace. It's likely he suffered for a long time and is experiencing intense grief. The psalmist is not really asking God to stop the discipline. What he wants most is for God to show him mercy so he can continue in a life of service and faithfulness. We get that. We understand that. As a pastor, I've seen families languish when they hear a doctor's diagnosis of a loved one. I've been in the room praying for people when a doctor's come in and said, "Hey, I need to talk to the family for just a few minutes." And so I leave, and when you step back in, there's nothing but tears and people are embracing each other, and okay, whatever was said wasn't good. And you see those folks carry that. You see them just carry that for a while. They're languishing. They're languishing. David goes on to say, my soul is greatly troubled. Look, when your soul is troubled, that means that thing that's you, that's deep down, all of you, the heart of you, the hope of you, is that punch in the gut that takes you down. I remember one of my senseis many years ago, he made the statement that there's a principle in karate and a principle in boxing. And that principle is if you hit the body enough times, eventually the head's going to drop. And when that head drops, boom, you can take him in the chin. Whole point is life will beat you up. And sometimes, even when nothing's really bad going on, you can be overwhelmed. I know people are overwhelmed by their jobs or their pay or their finances or their debts. I know people that are overwhelmed by the physical things going on. I know people that are overwhelmed by the fact they realize they're starting to age in ways they did not want to age. Things happen, things shift, things change. My soul also is greatly troubled. Then, O Lord, deliver my life. Save me for the sake of your steadfast love, for in death there's no remembrance of me. And the grave, who will give you praise? And notice when verse 4 say this, in true humility, the psalm writer seeks healing for his body, but most of all, for his soul. I know people who are physically sound and physically fit, but their soul, if they could see it, would be grieving. He wants to be restored spiritually so he can once again experience God's presence and God's favor. He desperately desires to sense God's nearness, mercy, and love. And since mercy and love are a part of God's character, believers may appeal to him to be true to his character as he always will be. And I'm telling you, there's been times in my life when I have needed God's grace and mercy more. And I remember laying in a hospital bed in Lexington, Kentucky at UK Healthcare, saying, oh Lord, I need grace today. And they were trying to get me up and get me walking. When they were trying to, I remember when all the tubes in my chest and the pain and just, you get up and your head would start spinning. I had vertigo really, really bad during that time. And I remember a nurse getting me up, and she said, okay, just lean against me. And I remember leaning against that nurse and keeping my eyes closed and thinking, God, I'm going to fall to the ground. I need your help. And I out loud said, God, I need your help. And this nurse began praying for me. She said, are you a Christian? I said, yes. As a matter of fact, I'm a pastor. Okay, so we got to talk about that a little bit. But I remember, man, I needed grace, I needed mercy, I needed physical strength. And there was no way I was gonna just chalk this up quickly out of my own body. It wasn't gonna happen. He says, for in death there's no remembrance. He said, Lord, even if I died right now, no one's gonna know, no one's gonna care. There may be a grave, but the flowers will fade one day and it'll fall away, and a headstone will walk over, and no one's gonna even know I was there. And then he says, I'm weary with my moaning. Every night I flood my bed with tears. I drench my couch with my weeping. Now, men should cry. I believe that wholeheartedly. And If men wait to cry, one day the dam will break, and it's going to be like a flood. And I remember I've been at the altar enough times praying with people and seeing that those floodwaters come, and I've seen I've seen those things that just keep coming out. And I'm not talking just the tears. I'm talking the sobbing and the weeping. David says, I am so tired from this. All I do is all night long I cry. All day long on my couch I cry. He says, my eye wastes away because of grief. I can't even look because everywhere I look, everything is terrible, horrible, nasty, bad. It's tragic. I don't even want to see it. So David is like, man, he is like, God, I'm so human right now. I hate it. I need your help. And then in verse 8, he says, depart from me, all you workers of evil. For the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. I'm going to go and read the notes from verse 6 about the weary with moanings. It says, the psalmist's lingering distress and grief have literally exhausted him. I have been there. Some of you have been there. Some of you are there right now. The statement, O Lord, how long, along with verse 6 and 7, confirms that God had not been quick to restore his spiritual peace. God doesn't work on your time zone. God doesn't work on your time frame. God doesn't care if you say, Lord, I need this now. God doesn't work. God does work in the now. He just doesn't work in your now when you say, I need this, I need this, I need this. Because we are so transactional based in life. You know, if you go through drive-through and hand them money, they're supposed to give you food. If you go in the store and you load your cart with stuff and you give them money, they're supposed to let you go. If you go to the tank and put gas in your car, the car's supposed to turn, it's supposed to turn on and go. So we're used to that. But God had not worked fast enough for David, and David's kind of like, well, I'm just letting you know about how I feel. Look, here I am down here. Look at me. I mean, you ever looked up at God and said, God, do you see this? Because I have. Lord, I'm sure you know where I'm at right now. I'm sure you see all these things happening, but oh Lord, I need help. I need help. I need help. The great hope in this psalm comes in verses 8 and 9 that teach that we do not need to despair. God will respond to our cries for help in his own perfect time. Our part is to wait patiently and to keep trusting him. Oh, Pastor Dana, why did you have to say that? Because that's what God told David. And David's like, okay, God, okay. I can see David all upset, his hands in the air. He's just barking and yelling, hollering. And finally he's like, oh, okay. Because God was speaking to his heart. He says, depart from me, all you workers of evil, for the Lord has heard the sound of my weeping. Remember, joy comes in the morning. The Lord's heard my plea. The Lord accepts my prayer. And his prayer was emotional. It was full of meat and potatoes. It was full of anger and anguish. It was full of languishing. All my enemies shall be ashamed and greatly troubled, and they shall turn back and be put to shame in a moment. So he says, okay, God, I know. And how many times do we say, okay, Lord, we know you're real. We know you're here. You've opened our hearts, and we're just going to settle down. Thank you, Jesus. And then, half hour later, God, do you see me? Do you know where I'm at? Can you not understand? I know you spoke to me a half hour ago, but Lord, I need it. Anybody? Anybody? Life's hard. We can't blame Adam. We can't blame Eve. We can't blame our spouses or our kids or anything else for choices we've made. We can't blame God for taking his time. Because he knows exactly when we need him to show up. He knows exactly when to show up. And so when life is frustrating and difficult and hard and ugly and indifferent, and you find yourself languishing, verse 2, once again, be gracious to me, O Lord, for I am languishing. languishing at this point, David was saying, I don't know how much more I can deal with this, God. I need you to do something. Do you hear me? Can you see me? I don't know how much more I can do this. In that song, the Lord makes a way where there is no way. But don't you want to know the way before it happens? It's kind of like praying, Lord, I know you'll move when you're ready to, but I'd like you to move right now. That's how it is. And sometimes the pressures of life, the heaviness of life, and believe me, I know exactly how some of that feels because I've been going through it. I've been going through it. I've done my best to be patient, but I've lost my patience at times. You know, we we have to understand that God knows where we are and sees where we are. He sees what's going on. He knows what's coming before you even see it. Um, David and this Psalm 6 is titled, "O Lord, deliver my life." This is called a penitential psalm. I think there's six of them in the psalms. You got the Kitrionic psalms, which are the angry ones, and the dashing the babies on the rocks, and the real anger, anger, anger. I mean, David went from way up here on the mountain to way down in the valley. Where he was licking the mud at the bottom of the valley. That was how far he would go. And, David kind of tracks like this. He's just all over the place. But I'm grateful that he wrote these things down. I'm grateful that God allowed us to see him, to hear him, to watch him. So if you're languishing today, and let me rephrase that. Some people do not have a whole lot of stress. Oh, to go back to being 10, 11 years old, right? When the most important thing was who you got to play dodgeball with at recess, or if they served the rectangular pizza. Anybody else like that rectangular pizza they used to serve at school? You can't make pizza like that anywhere else. Not everybody's day is going to be like mine or like yours. But everybody's day can be overwhelming at times. From time to time, I'll quote David, the name of the Lord is a strong tower, the righteous run into it and they are safe. You ever been in the strong tower and still not felt safe because your mind is thinking about what's outside the walls? I've got a picture in my office. Um, it's of Jesus with a staff, and there's a sheep right around his feet, and there's wolves in the background. And he's aware of the wolves, and the wolves are aware of him. But the other one right behind my desk, it's a wolf that's got it. It's like salivating and looking. It's just ready to bite down on a little lamb right in front of it. In the background, Jesus is running. You can tell he's running in the picture. He's running to get there. Got that staff in his hand. He's coming. So there's been times when I've had to say, God, I just need to know you're running towards me right now. That's all I need to know. You can walk if you want. You can move slowly, but I would prefer that you run towards me. Because God will not always do it when you want him to do it. And I think if we can get that in our heads and understand, okay, God, I'm going to trust you to bring us through this. You know, well, over a month ago, we signed a contract on a house. We've had to wait. 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 Because there's a process and things you have to do and things you have to work on and things you have to work out of. And that's where it's just been really good. So, folks, if you're languishing, there's a reason and there's a purpose. And for those of you, I run into people all the time. God doesn't love, if there's going through a hard time, bad time, there's sin in your life. That is the worst theology out there. The word makes it very clear that difficulty is what shapes us, is what hones us, is what sharpens us, is what makes us worthy, Because if you can't be faithful in the little things, you won't be faithful. He will not give you bigger things to be entrusted over. And so, to those that are languishing today, I'm not looking for a thumbs up. I'm not looking for an email later. If you need to talk, hey, send me an email. We can talk. I just want you to know that if you're languishing and you're overwhelmed, sometimes it doesn't help to say, well, the Lord knows where you are. And that's not a cop out. It's just a hardcore biblical truth. God does know where you are. And if He's allowing you to go through those difficult times, there's a reason, because there's fruit that's going to be produced in your life that you're never going to see until you go through it. So God's provided for me and my wife. You're taking care of bills in two places and trying to get things done, and God's always been faithful to me. Just faithful to me. And I don't worry about finances. I don't go to sleep thinking, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? I don't worry about my health. Um, Glucose levels have been decent. We're on this new monitor in the back of my arm, and the only question there, um, is, sometimes the time, the linking to my pump and stuff, but God's been faithful. God's been faithful to me physically, mentally, emotionally. Um, I'm still trying to do at least one day off a week where I just kind of rest mostly and just lay around and uh, sermon prep, which I know doesn't make it a day off, but God knows where you are. God knows where you are. Don't forget that. Don't forget that. And so those of you that are languishing, and this is tax day, so maybe you're languishing because of taxes you have to pay or all that goes into that. Well, let's pray, okay? Lord, I know since the early months of this year, knowing I was going to be transitioning from a church to a different church and moving and buying a house and up and down and back and forth, and my life has been unsettled. It's unsettled my wife's life, my dog's life, my son and my daughter-in-law's life. Lord, it's just been unsettling because we've had to wait for certain things. I've had to wait on the bank, had to wait on a realtor, had to wait on all these other things. And Lord, it's all come together. And even though I can see the end of the tunnel and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, I'm still not home yet. Literally, physically, in this sense, I'm not in the home I'm trying to buy yet. And there's just going to be something very, very settling to me, Lord, when I can sit there in a living room or a dining room table and know where I'm supposed to be. God, I'm looking forward to that. So I need the strength, the wisdom, the understanding, and the patience to get to that place. So many other things going on around me at home, the packing, the travel, all that, Lord. But yet, in that, I see that you have been faithful. God, I want to make sure I thank you for your faithfulness when things have been difficult and things have been hard and things have been tough. I want to thank you for your faithfulness. I honor you for that faithfulness. And Lord, there may be some today who are watching, who are listening, who've just gone through the ringer. And Lord, they've been in the olive press of life. They've been in the olive press. And they feel the squeeze of circumstances and situations. They're trying to get their heads and their hands around circumstances and situations in their lives. that to them make no sense at all. So, Father, your will be done. Your will be done in my life and the lives of those that are here today, or those that might be languishing. I pray they can go back through this psalm and receive comfort and peace because it's your word, Lord, and your word is living and active and sharp than any two-edged sword. Separates the thoughts and the joints and the marrow, the thoughts and the intentions of the heart, Lord. It separates. So may the word guide us. May the word lead us. May the word help us. Lord, I pray for those in difficult marriages right now. Pray for those that are struggling to figure out the direction that you want them to go. I'm praying for those, Lord, that have prayed for husbands and wives who have been lost, who have prayed for decades and decades and not seen or felt that they've seen any progress in those prayers. Lord, I'm going to pray that answers will come. And these prodigal husbands and these prodigal wives and prodigal kids and prodigal parents will begin to return in a fashion that only God gets the glory. May we see your hand at work in our lives, Lord. May we see your hand at work in us and in them. I pray for those that feel like they've not gotten the rest that they need. And I sense, Lord, there's many that are watching right now that are not restless, they're exhausted from life. And I'm just praying that you would speak peace into their hearts. I'm thinking, Lord, of that church in Revelation where you said just to hold on just a little bit longer. God, help and encourage them to go on just a little bit longer. Squeeze that hand tighter. And for you to squeeze your hand tighter around theirs, Lord. I thank you that in the midst of the chaos, the fear, the frustration, the rejection, the seemingly neglect that we go through sometimes, I'm grateful, Lord, that you are there and that you never leave us or forsake us. You never turn your back and walk away. Until the day we draw our last breath, you're right there, working in our lives in ways we can't dream of, think of, or imagine. Your will be done in our lives today, Lord, we pray. In Jesus' name. Sometimes the Lord uses me in word of knowledge, word of wisdom, discernment. And I think a lot of times when I've done some of these podcasts, or a lot of them, that because I pray before I do each one and walk and pace a bit, asking God for wisdom or a word of knowledge or a word of wisdom. And I just felt today that that verse, especially the word when it says languishing, when David says, "I am languishing." If you're languishing, just know that He is right there to bring peace and comfort, to supply, to make a way where there seems to be no way. So I will see you live again in the morning, live again on Friday. I'm going to try to be live on Monday. Next week could get a little bit, because I don't know yet on the closing how early that will be. As soon as I'll let folks know on Wednesday, that. And next Wednesday for sure, I'll still do another From the Perch. We're going to talk about transition. And there's a lot of transition in the Bible. A lot. Just think of the kings that David served, or that Daniel served under. Think about the transitions in discipleship once Judas had committed suicide. Think about the early church. Think about new pastors. Think about them reaching out to the Gentiles. And man, there's just so many things that happened, and sometimes transition scares us because it happens like a whirlwind around us. Whoa, what about this? What about that? And the whole point is God knows where we are. So transitions, and I'm in a big I've had job transition, went from father and husband to grandfather, which was a wonderful transition, I have to say. um Transitioning to a different church, different location, different community, you know, and how those things go. So thanks for being a part of this today. I will see you bright and early in the morning from Central Time, myself, at least today, tomorrow, and Friday, unless something shifts or changes. But nonetheless, hey, have a great rest of the day, and I will see you all in the morning, all right? God bless, and thanks for watching.